The phone call came at 2:47 a.m. My husband James was screaming so loud I could hear him from across the bedroom. "Lisa, what did you do? The FBI is at my office. Everything's frozen. My accounts, my reputation, my life." But I hadn't done anything. I was asleep. The person who destroyed him was eating cereal at our kitchen table the next morning, calmly asking if I could drive him to soccer practice early. My 15-year-old son Alex had just systematically dismantled a grown man's entire existence, and he did it so perfectly that even I didn't see it coming until it was over. This is how an honor student became a master of revenge, and why you should never, ever, steal from your own child. Let me take you back to where this all began. 3 months ago, we were the family everyone envied in Millbrook Heights. James Patterson, my husband of 8 years, was the golden boy of Hartwell Insurance. Community volunteer, Little League coach, the guy who never missed a parent-teacher conference. Our son Alex was everything you'd want in a teenager: honor roll student, varsity soccer captain, robotics club president. The kind of kid who had college recruiters calling the house twice a week. Every Friday night, we had our family tradition. James would come home with takeout from Mario's, Alex would update us on his week, and we'd all celebrate another $500 deposit into Alex's college fund. We'd been doing this since Alex was 7 years old. By his 15th birthday, we had accumulated $180,000. Alex would joke that he was going to be the first kid in his family to graduate debt-free from MIT or Stanford. "Dad, with this fund, I could focus on studies instead of working 3 jobs like you did," Alex would say, and James would beam with pride. "That's the whole point, son. I want you to have every opportunity one never had." I should have known something was wrong when James started missing our Friday dinners. It began small: emergency client meeting, regional conference call, mandatory training seminar. Always something that sounded important and unavoidable. But Alex noticed before I did. "Mom, Dad's been getting weird phone calls during dinner," Alex mentioned one Tuesday evening while we were cleaning dishes. "He always walks outside to take them, and when he comes back, he looks guilty." I laughed it off. "Honey, your father deals with insurance claims all day. Some conversations are confidential. You're probably just stressed about your college applications." But Alex wasn't just any 15-year-old. As varsity soccer captain, he learned to read people, to notice patterns, to spot weaknesses in opponents. His coach always said Alex had an unusual ability to see 3 moves ahead of everyone else on the field. Those same skills that made him a natural leader were now focused on his own father. "It's not just the phone calls," Alex persisted. "Dad used to check his phone maybe once during dinner. Now he checks it every few minutes, and he always keeps it face down. When someone calls him honey, he hangs up immediately." "That's not a client, Mom." I felt a chill run down my spine, but I pushed it away. James and I had been together for 17 years total. He was steady, reliable, boring in the best possible way. The idea of him having an affair seemed absurd. "Alex, your imagination is running wild. Your father loves this family. He's working extra hard to make sure you have everything you need for college." Alex nodded, but I could see in his eyes that he wasn't convinced. That look, calculating, analytical, should have been my first warning about what was coming. The discovery happened on a Saturday morning in early March. James had left early for what he claimed was a client breakfast meeting. Alex was heading to the garage to get his soccer gear when he saw it. A second phone, charging on James's workbench, hidden behind a paint can. Alex told me later that his first instinct was to ignore it. Maybe it was a work phone he didn't know about. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. But something about the secrecy bothered him. If it was legitimate, why hide it? He picked up the phone. No password, the first mistake James made in what would become a series of catastrophic errors. The screen lit up with dozens of unread messages from office with heart emojis. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Hotel room 237, same as always. James, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I can't believe we're finally going to be together forever. Did you transfer the money today? The house in Phoenix won't wait much longer." Alex's hands were shaking as he scrolled through months of messages. His father wasn't just having an affair. He was planning to abandon their family entirely. But the worst was yet to come. On James's workbench, partially hidden under some insurance forms, Alex found a sticky note with handwriting he recognized. His father's username and password for their family banking portal, written in James's distinctive scrawl. Alex had never logged into the family accounts before. His parents handled all the finances, and he trusted them completely. That trust was about to be shattered. He ran upstairs to his computer and pulled up the bank website. His fingers trembled as he entered his father's credentials. The page loaded, and Alex stared at the screen in complete disbelief. Checking account, $3,247.83 savings account, $12,000 Alex's college fund, $23,000. That college fund should have had $180,000. They'd been depositing money every week for 8 years. Alex pulled up the transaction history with growing horror. Over the past 6 weeks, there had been massive transfers out of his account. $25,000 to something called Desert Sky Investments, $40,000 to Phoenix Property Holdings, $30,000 to a cryptocurrency exchange. $50,000 marked simply as Personal Transfer, JP. His father had stolen $157,000 from his college fund and was using it to build a new life with his mistress. Alex sat in his room for 3 hours, staring at the evidence on his computer screen. His father hadn't just betrayed their family, he'd systematically stolen Alex's entire future and given it to another woman. Every Friday night celebration had been a lie. Every proud moment about building Alex's opportunities had been theater, while James secretly dismantled them. But what Alex felt wasn't just hurt or anger. It was something colder, more calculated. As team captain, he learned that when someone betrays you, emotional reactions lead to mistakes. Strategic thinking leads to victory. His father had taught him that actions have consequences. James was about to learn that lesson in the most devastating way possible. If you've ever had that moment when you realize someone you trust is destroying your family, hit subscribe to Revenge with Nick. This story gets so much darker before Alex turns the tables completely. And if you're not ready to subscribe yet, tell me in the comments what you'd do if you caught your parents stealing your future. Alex didn't tell me about his discovery that day. Instead, he did something that still gives me chills when I think about it. He started planning. Not planning to expose his father, not planning to save our family, but planning to completely destroy the man who had betrayed us. The next morning, Sunday, Alex appeared at breakfast acting completely normal. "Hey Dad, great workout yesterday? You were gone pretty early for that client meeting." James, buttering his toast, didn't even look up. "Yeah, new client, very demanding. Had to meet him at his hotel restaurant." "Hotel restaurant?" Alex asked innocently. "Which hotel?" "Maybe I know it from soccer tournaments." I watched James pause for just a fraction of a second. "The Marriott downtown. Nothing fancy." Alex nodded and smiled. "Cool. Hey, can you drive me to practice early today? Coach wants to work on some new plays with the captains." As James drove Alex to practice, my son was mentally cataloging everything. The route they took, the timestamps, the way his father checked his phone at every red light. Alex had learned from years of sports psychology that the key to defeating an opponent was understanding their patterns, their weaknesses, their tells. That afternoon, Alex started what he would later call his reconnaissance phase. He told me he was going for his usual training run, but instead of running laps around our neighborhood, he ran the 8 miles to downtown Millbrook. He positioned himself across from the Marriott downtown and waited. At 2:30 p.m., he saw his father's silver BMW pull into the hotel parking lot. But James wasn't alone. A woman with dark hair and a red dress got out of the passenger side, someone Alex had never seen before. They walked into the hotel together, James's hand on the small of her back in a way that made Alex feel sick. Alex waited. At 4:45 p.m., they emerged from the hotel, James adjusting his tie, the woman checking her makeup in her phone camera. They kissed goodbye in full view of anyone who might be watching, then got into separate cars. Alex ran the 8 miles home and arrived just as James was pulling into our driveway. "Great run, son." James called out cheerfully. How was practice with the other captains? Really productive, Dad. We're working on some new strategies. Over the next 2 weeks, Alex established a pattern that would make a private investigator proud. Every morning at 6 a.m., he'd go for a training run that happened to take him past the Hartwell Insurance building where James worked. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he'd run the route to the Marriott downtown. Every weekend, he'd find reasons to go to different parts of town, always keeping an eye out for his father's car. Alex started keeping a detailed log in a composition notebook he hid in his closet. Times, locations, license plates, descriptions. He documented 14 separate lies James told over 2 weeks. Client dinner, when Alex spotted him at Romano's with the mystery woman. Regional training, when Alex saw him browsing jewelry stores at Westfield Mall. Emergency claim inspection, when Alex watched him check into the Marriott at 2 p.m. on a Thursday. But Alex's most devastating discovery came from his computer skills. As president of the robotics club, Alex had learned basic programming and cybersecurity. Nothing advanced, just enough to build competitive robots and secure their team's data systems. But those skills were about to become weapons. James, like most middle-aged men, was terrible with digital security. He used the same password for everything. Lisa 1, Alex 2, our names with our birthdays. He never logged out of his accounts when he finished using them. He saved every password in his browser and never cleared his history. Alex waited until James was taking his usual Sunday afternoon nap, then quietly entered his father's home office. James's laptop was still open, still logged into his email account. Alex plugged in a small USB drive, the same kind he used to transfer robotics programming files, and installed a simple keylogger program he'd found through online tutorials. Within days, Alex had access to everything. Every password, every account, every secret his father thought he was keeping. What he found was so much worse than just an affair. The woman was Melissa Torres, the office manager at Hartwell Insurance. She'd been working there for 2 years, and she and James had been having an affair for 8 months. But the affair was just the beginning. Through James's email, Alex discovered the full scope of his father's betrayal. James and Melissa weren't just having a fling, they were planning to disappear together entirely. Phoenix Property Holdings wasn't just a random investment. It was a house, a $400,000 house in Scottsdale, Arizona, that James and Melissa were buying together. James had used Alex's college fund as the down payment and was planning to use our family's savings to cover the first year of mortgage payments. The most damning email was from 3 weeks earlier. James, baby, I can't wait to start our new life together. Once we're in Arizona, Lisa will never find us. You can file for bankruptcy here in Illinois and walk away clean. I've already found you a job at my cousin's insurance agency in Phoenix. We can be together forever, and you won't have to worry about child support or alimony. By the time they figure out where you went, we'll be established under new identities. Alex read that email 4 times before the full implications hit him. His father wasn't just stealing his college money. He was planning to destroy their entire family and disappear, leaving Alex and me with nothing but debt and devastation. The cryptocurrency transfers made sense now. James was converting stolen family money into untraceable digital currency, then transferring it to accounts Melissa had set up in Arizona. The personal transfer, JP entries, were cash withdrawals James was storing somewhere, probably in preparation for their escape. Alex calculated that his father had stolen not just the $157,000 from his college fund, but an additional $89,000 from other family accounts, plus had taken out a $45,000 loan against our house without my knowledge. In total, James had stolen or borrowed nearly $300,000 to fund his new life with Melissa, and he was planning to abandon Alex and me with the debt. But here's what James didn't know about his son. Alex had inherited his father's intelligence and strategic thinking, but unlike James, Alex had developed something his father lacked, a moral compass that pointed toward protecting family rather than betraying it. As Alex sat in his room, staring at the evidence of his father's comprehensive betrayal, he made a decision that would change all of our lives forever. He wasn't going to tell me what he'd discovered. He wasn't going to confront his father. He wasn't going to involve the police. Alex was going to handle this himself. Dad thinks he's playing chess, Alex wrote in his notebook that night. But he doesn't know I've been watching his moves for weeks. He doesn't know I have access to all his accounts. He doesn't know I understand his weaknesses. And he definitely doesn't know that in this game, I'm not a pawn. I'm the queen, and I'm about to end this match. Over the next week, Alex did something that still amazes me when I think about it. Using nothing but publicly available information and basic computer skills, he built a complete psychological profile of his father. James's gambling addiction that he thought nobody knew about. His insecurity about money that drove him to make increasingly risky financial decisions. His need for validation that made him vulnerable to Melissa's manipulation. His pattern of lying that always followed the same structure: small lie, bigger lie, complete fabrication, then panic when caught. Alex realized that his father's greatest weakness wasn't his affair or his stealing, it was his arrogance. James thought he was the smartest person in every room. He thought a 15-year-old son would never catch him. He thought he could manipulate and betray his family without consequences. James Patterson was about to discover that his teenage son was not only smarter than him, but infinitely more ruthless when it came to protecting the people he loved. The betrayal runs so much deeper than just an affair. This is about destroying an entire family for a fresh start. Subscribe to Revenge with Nick if you want to see how Alex makes his father pay for every dollar stolen, or comment below if you think Alex should have just called the police. Alex spent the next 3 days developing what he called his strategic response plan. He approached it like preparing for the state championship, analyzing the opponent, identifying weaknesses, developing multiple strategies, and preparing contingencies for every possible outcome. I found his notebook weeks later, and reading it was like discovering that my teenage son had become a military strategist overnight. The level of detail was frightening and impressive in equal measure. Target analysis. James Patterson, JP, primary weaknesses. 1. Gambling addiction. Thinks nobody knows about weekly casino trips. 2. Ego/arrogance. Believes he's smarter than everyone around him. 3. Guilt patterns. Overcompensates when feeling guilty by being extra nice. 4. Technology incompetence. Reuses passwords, doesn't clear browser history. 5. Pattern predictability. Same schedule, same routes, same lies structure. Mission objective. Complete neutralization of threat to family financial security secondary objective. Recovery of stolen assets tertiary objective. Ensure target cannot repeat behavior with other families. Phase 1. Intelligence gathering and evidence documentation, 14 days. Phase 2. Relationship disruption and professional sabotage, 14 days. Phase 3. Financial and legal destruction, 7 days. Phase 4. Family protection and asset recovery, ongoing. Rules of engagement. No direct confrontation until Phase 3. All actions must be legal and untraceable to me. Mom's emotional well-being is priority. She discovers truth gradually. All evidence preserved for legal proceedings. No permanent harm to target's physical safety. Reading that notebook, I realized that my 15-year-old son had developed a more sophisticated battle plan than most adults could conceive. But what struck me most was that last rule. Even in his anger, even with all the power to destroy his father completely, Alex had set moral boundaries for himself that James had never respected. Phase 1 began immediately. Alex had already been gathering evidence for 2 weeks, but now he systematized it. Every morning before school, he'd check all of James's accounts using the keylogger data. Every evening, he'd update his documentation with new evidence of theft or deception. But Alex's real genius was in how he began manipulating the situation without anyone realizing it. He started asking innocent questions at dinner that forced James to tell more elaborate lies. Dad, Mrs. Henderson at school said her husband works in insurance too. Do you know Mike Henderson from Liberty Mutual? James would have to fabricate an entire story about Mike Henderson, then Alex would fact-check it later. When the story didn't hold up, Alex would file it away as more evidence of his father's pathological lying. Hey Dad, I was thinking about business classes for next year. Could you tell me more about investments? Like, what's the difference between cryptocurrency and regular stocks? James, trying to sound knowledgeable, would explain investments while Alex secretly knew that James was currently liquidating Alex's college fund through crypto transfers. Every explanation was another lie Alex documented. The most diabolical part of Phase 1 was how Alex began planting seeds of suspicion in my mind without me realizing it. He'd leave James's credit card statements where I might accidentally see them. He'd mention noticing Dad's car at strange locations. He'd ask questions about our family finances that made me start paying attention to things I'd previously ignored. Mom, are we okay money-wise? I know college is expensive, and I want to make sure I'm not putting too much pressure on the family budget. Of course we're fine, honey. Your college fund is healthy, and your father's business is doing well. That's great. I was just wondering because I saw Dad looking really stressed when he was paying bills last week. And he got that call from the bank on Tuesday that seemed to upset him. I had noticed James seeming stressed, and there had been a call from the bank. But I hadn't connected these things until Alex mentioned them. Suddenly, I found myself paying more attention to James's behavior, noticing the same patterns Alex had been documenting for weeks. Phase 1 also included Alex's most technically impressive achievement, gaining access to Melissa Torres's digital life. Using social media research techniques he'd learned for school projects, Alex discovered that Melissa used the same username across multiple platforms. Through a combination of public record searches and educated guessing based on her social media posts, Alex figured out that Melissa's password for most accounts was Sterling 2011, her maiden name and college graduation year. Within days, Alex had access to Melissa's email, social media, and even her online banking. What he found there revealed that Melissa was just as much a manipulator as James, but with even fewer moral boundaries. Melissa had been planning the Arizona escape for months, but she had a backup plan James didn't know about. If their relationship didn't work out, she had been transferring money from James's accounts into her own private investments. She was essentially stealing from the man who was stealing from his own family. More disturbing, Alex discovered that James wasn't Melissa's first affair with a married client. She had a pattern of targeting successful insurance agents, manipulating them into taking money from their agencies or families, then disappearing when the relationships became complicated. She'd done this at least twice before in other states. Alex realized that his father wasn't just a betrayer. He was also being betrayed by someone even more ruthless than himself. This gave Alex leverage he hadn't expected and an opportunity to turn James's co-conspirator into an unwitting ally in his father's destruction. But the discovery that truly hardened Alex's resolve came from Melissa's personal emails to her sister in California. This guy James is such an easy mark. He actually thinks I love him. He's stolen almost $200,000 from his family to impress me. The funny thing is, once we get to Phoenix, I'm going to dump him and keep all the money. He'll be stuck in Arizona with no money, no family, and no way to get home. His wife and kid will think he abandoned them, and he'll be too embarrassed to crawl back. It's the perfect crime. He can't report me without admitting to his own theft. I've done this before, and it works every time. These middle-aged guys are so desperate for validation, they'll destroy their own lives for a woman who tells them they're special. Reading that email, Alex understood that his father wasn't just betraying their family, he was also destroying himself for someone who viewed him as nothing more than a financial resource to be exploited and discarded. The old Alex might have felt sorry for his father. The old Alex might have tried to warn James that Melissa was using him. But the old Alex had lived in a world where parents protected their children, where family came first, where people you trusted didn't steal your future and give it to strangers. The new Alex, the one forged by betrayal and hardened by necessity, had a different response. If his father wanted to be manipulated and destroyed by Melissa, Alex would make sure it happened in the most devastating way possible. If James was determined to lose everything for a woman who didn't love him, Alex would ensure that the loss was total and irreversible. Phase 2 of Alex's plan wasn't just about exposing the affair or recovering the stolen money. It was about using James's own weaknesses and Melissa's manipulative nature to turn them against each other, ensuring that they destroyed each other while Alex protected what remained of our family. Alex spent hours studying psychological manipulation tactics, relationship dynamics, and behavioral psychology. He researched case studies of con artists, corporate sabotage techniques, and even military psychological operations. His goal wasn't just revenge. It was the complete neutralization of threats to our family's future. The most chilling entry in Alex's notebook was his summary of Phase 2 objectives. JP and MT believe they are predators who have found perfect victims. They do not understand that they have revealed themselves to a superior strategist who views them as obstacles to be removed. They will destroy each other using their own greed, insecurity, and betrayal. I will simply provide the conditions necessary for their mutual destruction. They will never see me coming because they cannot conceive that a 15-year-old victim could become their most dangerous enemy. Alex is playing psychological warfare at a level that would make military strategists proud. Subscribe to Revenge with Nick if you're fascinated by this tactical genius, or comment if you think a 15-year-old becoming this calculating is actually terrifying. Phase 2 began on a Tuesday morning when Alex made his first direct move against Melissa Torres. But it was so subtle, so perfectly disguised as coincidence, that neither Melissa nor James suspected they were under attack. Alex had discovered through Melissa's social media that she was married to David Torres, a cardiac surgeon at Millbrook General Hospital. Dr. Torres was active on LinkedIn and Facebook, frequently posting about medical conferences and family photos. From his posts, Alex learned that David was a proud, traditional man who frequently wrote about integrity, family values, and the importance of trust in marriage. David Torres had no idea his wife was having an affair, much less that she was planning to abandon him and steal money to run away with another man. Alex's first strike was a masterpiece of psychological manipulation. Using a throwaway email account created at the public library, Alex sent David Torres a message that appeared to come from a concerned colleague. Dr. Torres, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing because I believe you deserve to know something about your wife's activities. As a fellow medical professional, I understand the importance of trust and honesty in marriage. I have reason to believe Melissa has been having an extended affair with a client from her workplace. I wouldn't normally involve myself in personal matters, but I know how devastating it can be to discover these things too late. I've attached some photos taken at the Marriott downtown that I think you should see. I'm sorry to be the bearer of difficult news. A concerned colleague. The photos Alex attached were ones he'd taken during his surveillance runs, clear images of James and Melissa entering and leaving the hotel together, kissing goodbye in the parking lot, holding hands as they walked to their cars. Alex timed the email to arrive on Wednesday evening when he knew from David's social media posts that the doctor would be home from his hospital rounds. The results exceeded Alex's expectations. Thursday morning, Melissa arrived at work with a black eye, wearing sunglasses and long sleeves despite the warm weather. According to the keylogger data, she sent increasingly frantic messages to James throughout the day. We need to talk. David knows. Everything is falling apart. James, call me back. I can't reach you and I'm freaking out. Something went wrong. Someone sent David pictures. We need to move up our timeline. Can you get more money today? But James, unaware of the crisis, was in back-to-back client meetings and didn't check his personal phone until afternoon. By then, Melissa had made a decision that would begin unraveling everything they'd planned. She called in sick to work and drove to the bank, attempting to withdraw the maximum cash advance from their joint Arizona account. But Alex had anticipated this move. 2 days earlier, he'd used James's computer to change the account access settings, requiring dual authorization for any withdrawals over $1,000. When Melissa couldn't access the money, she panicked and made her first major mistake. She called James's office directly, crying and demanding that he meet her immediately. James's secretary, Mrs. Caldwell, took the message. A very upset woman named Melissa called for you. She said it was urgent and she needed to see you right away. She seemed quite emotional. Mrs. Caldwell had worked at Hartwell Insurance for 15 years. She knew James was married to Lisa Patterson. She'd never heard of any Melissa who would call James in emotional distress. This was exactly the kind of workplace gossip that Alex had been counting on. That afternoon, James met Melissa at their usual hotel, but instead of their typical romantic rendezvous, he walked into a storm of accusations and desperation. "Someone is sabotaging us," Melissa screamed at him. "David got pictures of us together. Professional photos, James. Someone has been following us, documenting everything." James, still thinking he was smarter than everyone around him, dismissed her concerns. "You're being paranoid. David probably hired a private investigator because he suspected something. These things happen in divorces. This isn't about divorce." Melissa's voice was rising. "Don't you understand? If David knows about us, he knows about the money. He's going to investigate our finances. He's going to find out about Phoenix, about the cryptocurrency, about everything." What James didn't know was that Alex was in the hotel parking lot, sitting in the McDonald's across the street, watching the whole confrontation unfold through the window of their hotel room. Alex had positioned himself there because he'd planted a small recording device, the same kind used for student journalism projects, in James's car the night before. He could hear every word of their argument through a simple radio app on his phone. "Melissa, calm down. Even if David knows about us, he can't touch the Arizona money. It's in accounts he doesn't know about. You don't get it." Melissa was crying now. "I tried to withdraw cash today, and the account was frozen. Something is wrong with our banking access. What if someone has hacked our accounts?" Alex smiled. Phase 2 was proceeding exactly as planned. James spent the next hour trying to log into their various accounts from his phone, growing increasingly panicked as he discovered that several accounts had been flagged for suspicious activity. His cryptocurrency exchanges were requiring additional identity verification. The Phoenix Property Management Company was requesting updated financial documentation before finalizing their house purchase. None of these were random occurrences. Over the past week, Alex had been systematically reporting suspicious activity on accounts associated with his father's theft. Anonymous tips to fraud departments, carefully crafted emails to financial institutions, subtle manipulation of automated security systems that James was too technologically inept to understand. But Alex's masterstroke was yet to come. That evening, while James was dealing with Melissa's crisis, Alex implemented the most devastating phase of his plan, turning James's own gambling addiction against him. Alex had discovered that James visited Silver Creek Casino every Sunday afternoon, telling our family he was meeting with clients or attending regional training. James had been using stolen college fund money to finance increasingly desperate gambling sessions, trying to invest the stolen money to multiply it quickly before anyone noticed it was missing. Alex had spent weeks studying James's gambling patterns, and he'd identified a crucial weakness. James always played the same electronic poker machines, always used the same strategy, and always fell for the same psychological tricks that casinos use to keep addicts playing. Using techniques he'd learned from psychology research, Alex began manipulating James's gambling environment. He created fake online gambling tips forums where he posted advice designed to make James lose money faster. He researched the specific slot machines James preferred and learned how their payout algorithms worked. Most importantly, he figured out how to trigger James's addiction response at exactly the moment when it would cause maximum damage to James's relationship with Melissa. Sunday afternoon, while James was at the casino, Alex sent Melissa a carefully crafted text message from a burner phone. "This is someone who cares about your safety. James is at Silver Creek Casino right now, gambling away the money you've both been saving for Arizona. He's been doing this every Sunday for months. Check the bank accounts. You're being played by an addict who's going to lose everything you've worked for." Alex included photos he'd taken of James's car in the casino parking lot, along with screenshots of James's browser history showing gambling advice websites and casino rewards programs. Melissa, already panicked about David's discovery of their affair, drove immediately to Silver Creek Casino. She found James exactly where Alex knew he would be, at his favorite video poker machine, down $8,000 and desperately trying to win back money he'd stolen from his own son's college fund. The confrontation that followed was everything Alex had hoped for and more. Melissa confronted James in the middle of the casino floor, screaming about his lies, his addiction, and his betrayal of their plans. Other gamblers stopped their games to watch as she accused him of stealing money not just from his family, but from their shared future. James, caught off guard and ashamed, responded with anger and defensiveness. He accused Melissa of being paranoid, controlling, and ungrateful for everything he'd sacrificed for their relationship. Security cameras captured the entire argument. By Monday morning, multiple employees at Hartwell Insurance had heard about their boss's public meltdown at the casino with a woman who wasn't his wife. But Alex wasn't finished with either of them. Monday evening, Alex implemented the final component of Phase 2, professional sabotage designed to destroy James's career and Melissa's financial security simultaneously. Using information he'd gathered about James's insurance clients, Alex discovered that James had been manipulating client premiums to skim money for his gambling and affair. Nothing dramatic, just small overcharges that clients wouldn't notice, with the excess going into James's personal accounts. Alex documented these discrepancies and submitted an anonymous report to the Illinois Department of Insurance, along with detailed evidence of James's financial crimes against clients. Simultaneously, Alex sent an anonymous tip to Hartwell Insurance's corporate headquarters, detailing James's affair with an employee, his gambling addiction, and his theft of client funds. The investigation began immediately. By Wednesday, James was suspended pending a full audit of his client accounts. By Friday, Melissa was fired for inappropriate workplace relationships and potential financial irregularities. In just 1 week, Alex had destroyed both conspirators' ability to complete their escape plan. They had no access to the stolen money, no employment income, no way to complete the house purchase in Arizona, and their relationship was fracturing under the pressure of mutual blame and recrimination. But James still didn't know that his 15-year-old son was the architect of his destruction. He thought he was just experiencing an incredibly unlucky series of coincidences. Alex's final move in Phase 2 was his most psychologically devastating. He arranged for James to discover that Melissa had been planning to betray him all along. Using Melissa's email access, Alex forwarded James copies of all her communications with her sister, the emails detailing her plan to steal James's money and abandon him in Arizona, her mockery of his desperation and gullibility, her history of running similar cons on other married men. James received these emails on Saturday morning, sent from an anonymous account with a simple message, "Thought you should know what your girlfriend really thinks of you." The psychological impact was immediate and total. James realized that he'd destroyed his family, stolen from his son, lost his career, and ruined his reputation, all for a woman who viewed him as nothing more than a mark in an elaborate con game. Sunday morning, James sat in our kitchen, unshaven and hollow-eyed, staring at his phone as it buzzed with angry calls from creditors, investigators, and attorneys. Melissa had blocked his number after he'd confronted her about the emails. His boss had left voicemails about criminal charges. The bank was threatening foreclosure on loans he'd taken against our house. Alex came downstairs for breakfast, looking like any normal teenager getting ready for a new week of school. "Morning, Dad. Rough weekend." James looked up at his son, this kid he'd betrayed and stolen from, who was calmly eating cereal while James's entire world collapsed around him, and for the first time, James seemed to understand that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the smartest person in the room after all. But Alex wasn't done with him yet. Phase 3 was about to begin, and it would finish what Phase 2 had started. Alex has turned his father's own weaknesses into weapons of mass destruction. If you're loving this level of strategic revenge, subscribe to Revenge with Nick right now. Or tell me in the comments, has Alex become the villain in his own story? Phase 3 began the following Monday morning with a single phone call that would destroy what remained of James's life. But the call didn't come from Alex. It came from Special Agent Sarah Chin of the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. "Mr. Patterson, this is Agent Chin with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need to speak with you immediately regarding reports of wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering connected to your business and personal accounts." James, who had been drinking coffee and trying to figure out how to salvage his relationship with Melissa, nearly dropped his phone. "I'm sorry, what? FBI? There must be some mistake." "No mistake, sir. We have substantial evidence of criminal activity involving multiple financial institutions and interstate commerce. You need to come to our office today, or we'll be forced to arrest you at your home. I assume you'd prefer to handle this discreetly for your family's sake." What James didn't know was that Alex had spent the previous 2 weeks submitting detailed, documented reports to every relevant law enforcement and regulatory agency. The Illinois Department of Insurance, the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Illinois Attorney General's office. Each report was meticulously prepared, with hundreds of pages of evidence that Alex had gathered over months of surveillance. Bank statements showing the theft from Alex's college fund. Screenshots of cryptocurrency transfers. Photos of James and Melissa together with timestamps proving their relationship during periods when money was being stolen. Recordings of James lying to clients about premium costs. Documentation of forged signatures on loan applications. But Alex's most devastating evidence was a comprehensive timeline that showed James's crimes weren't just about an affair. They constituted a pattern of fraud that had been going on for over a year and involved multiple victims. Alex had discovered that James hadn't just stolen from our family. He'd been overcharging insurance clients, manipulating claim settlements, and skimming money from elderly customers who trusted him to manage their policies. The total fraud exceeded $800,000 across dozens of victims. Agent Chen's investigation had been triggered by Alex's reports, but once federal authorities began looking into James's activities, they found far more criminal behavior than even Alex had documented. That Monday afternoon, while James was being interrogated by federal agents, Alex was at school, taking a calculus test and attending soccer practice like any normal teenager. But that evening, when James came home looking like he'd aged 10 years in one day, Alex was ready for the conversation he'd been planning for months. "Dad, we need to talk." James, still in shock from his FBI interview, looked up from the kitchen table where he'd been staring at a stack of legal documents. "Alex, son, I don't know how to explain what's happening. There are some very serious accusations being made, and I'm going to need to hire lawyers and—" "Dad." Alex's voice was calm, steady, completely devoid of emotion. "I know about Melissa. I know about the casino. I know about the college fund. I know about the house in Arizona. I know about the client fraud. I know everything." The silence that followed was deafening. James stared at his 15-year-old son, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to speak but couldn't form words. "That's impossible," James finally whispered. "You're just a kid. How could you possibly?" Alex opened his laptop and pulled up a folder labeled Evidence, James Patterson Financial Crimes. The folder contained 147 files organized into subfolders: bank records, email communications, photographic evidence, audio recordings, timeline documentation, legal violations, and federal reports. "I've been watching you for 3 months, Dad. I've documented every lie, every theft, every betrayal. I know about the $157,000 you stole from my college fund. I know about the $89,000 you took from Mom's savings. I know about the $45,000 loan you took against our house without her knowledge. I know about the gambling addiction you think nobody knows about. I know about Melissa's plan to steal all your money and abandon you in Arizona." James's face went white. "Alex, listen to me. I know this looks bad, but I was going to pay it all back. Melissa and I had this investment opportunity that was going to double our money, and then I was going to quietly replace everything before anyone noticed. Dad, Melissa was never going to invest your money. She was going to steal it and disappear, just like she did to 2 other married men in Kansas and Oregon before she moved here." James stared at his son in complete shock. "How could you possibly know that?" Alex clicked through several screens, pulling up police reports from other states, court documents, and social media posts that detailed Melissa's pattern of targeting married insurance agents in elaborate con games. Because unlike you, I actually researched the person I was trusting with my family's future. The weight of what Alex was saying began to hit James. Not only had his son discovered his crimes, but Alex had protected him from an even worse betrayal by exposing Melissa's true intentions. James started to speak, but Alex held up his hand. I'm not finished. You want to know how the FBI found out about your crimes? I reported you. Every single federal agency that investigates financial fraud has copies of everything you've done. The Illinois Department of Insurance has evidence of your client overcharging scheme. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has documentation of your predatory practices against elderly customers. The IRS has records of your unreported gambling income and fraudulent tax deductions. James felt the room spinning around him. You turned in your own father? You stopped being my father the day you decided to steal my future and give it to your mistress. Alex's voice never rose, never wavered, never showed even a hint of emotion. He spoke like he was discussing a school project, not the systematic destruction of his own father's life. But here's what's really going to hurt, Dad. All of those agencies started investigating you because of my reports, but guess what they found? You're not just a cheating husband who stole from his family. You're a career criminal who's been defrauding clients for years. They found evidence of crimes I didn't even know about. They found victims I'd never heard of. Elderly people who trusted you with their life savings, and you stole from them too. James buried his face in his hands. Alex, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. I love you. I love your mother. Can't we find a way to fix this? You love us. Alex's voice finally showed emotion, not sadness or anger, but cold, calculated disgust. Dad, you stole my entire college fund to impress a woman who was planning to abandon you. You were going to disappear to Arizona and leave Mom and me with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. You've been lying to us for months while planning to destroy our lives. That's not love. That's sociopathic selfishness. Alex closed his laptop and looked directly at his father. And here's the best part, Dad. Remember how you always taught me that actions have consequences? That successful people think strategically and plan ahead? That intelligence and patience always defeat impulsiveness and greed? Congratulations. You taught me well. James stared at his son, this 15-year-old who had just demonstrated strategic thinking and ruthless execution that surpassed anything James had ever accomplished, and realized that he'd created his own destroyer. What happens now? James asked quietly. Now you face the consequences of your choices. The FBI estimates you'll be charged with wire fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and interstate transportation of stolen property. That's 20 to 30 years in federal prison. Your insurance license is permanently revoked. Every client you defrauded is going to sue you civilly. Mom's going to divorce you and get every asset that isn't seized by the government. Alex stood up and shouldered his backpack. Oh, and Dad? My college fund has been fully restored through asset forfeiture proceedings. The government seized all the money you and Melissa were hiding, plus penalties and interest. I'm actually going to have more money for college than I started with. So thank you for that, I guess. James watched his son walk toward the kitchen door, then called out desperately. Alex, wait. What about us? What about our family? Can you ever forgive me? Alex paused at the doorway and turned back to look at his father one last time. You taught me that the people who betray you aren't worth forgiving, Dad. They're just problems to be solved. Congratulations, you're solved. With that, Alex left the kitchen, leaving James alone with the wreckage of his life and the devastating realization that he'd been outplayed by his own son at every single step. The next morning, James was arrested at our house by federal agents. As they led him away in handcuffs, Alex was getting ready for school, calmly eating breakfast and reviewing his notes for a history test. I watched my 15-year-old son, this person I thought I knew, who had just orchestrated the complete destruction of his father's life, and realized that I'd been living with a strategic genius who had protected our family when I was too trusting to protect myself. Alex, I said quietly, are you okay? He looked up from his textbook and smiled, the same warm, genuine smile he'd had since he was a little boy. I'm great, Mom. We're safe now. And I have some ideas about how to help other families who are going through similar situations. I think I want to study criminal justice in college. As I watched Alex finish his breakfast and head off to school like nothing had happened, I understood that James had been wrong about everything except one thing. Actions really do have consequences. And sometimes, those consequences are delivered by the people you underestimate most. Alex proved that intelligence, patience, and strategic thinking can defeat even the most selfish betrayal. He went from victim to victor by using his father's own methods against him. If this story of tactical revenge gave you chills, subscribe to Revenge with Nick for more stories where the underdog doesn't just win, they dominate. Hit that notification bell because next week's story involves a 16-year-old who exposed her stepmother's insurance fraud scheme and saved her family's business. And if you're still not subscribing, comment below and tell me what kind of revenge story would finally earn your subscription. I read every comment and your feedback shapes every story I tell. This is Revenge with Nick, where justice isn't just served, it's served with surgical precision. 6 months later, James was sentenced to 28 years in federal prison. Melissa received 15 years for her role in the fraud conspiracy. The house they'd planned to buy in Arizona was sold, with the proceeds going to reimburse their victims. Alex started a nonprofit organization called Family Financial Protection that helps teenagers recognize and report financial abuse by family members. He's spoken at conferences across the country and has been featured in articles about youth advocacy and financial crime prevention. He graduated as valedictorian and received a full scholarship to MIT, where he's studying computer science and criminal justice. His goal is to become a federal prosecutor specializing in financial crimes. And yes, he still plays soccer. Some things never change. But the boy who trusted his father implicitly? That Alex is gone forever, replaced by someone far more dangerous to those who would prey on families and far more protective of those he loves. James taught Alex that the world is full of people who will betray you for their own gain. Alex learned that lesson perfectly, and then used it to become someone James never saw coming. After all, the best students always surpass their teachers.